President Biden is calling on U.S. oil companies to produce more gasoline and diesel. On Wednesday, he sent letters to several companies, including ExxonMobil, BP, and Shell. He asked them to work with the White House and bring concrete near-term solutions to the energy crisis. Mr. Biden also accused the companies of capitalizing on the war in Ukraine. This comes as the cost of gas keeps going up here in the U.S. The average price of a gallon of regular gas is now a little more than $5. For more on this, I want to bring in Zeke Miller. He's a CBS News political contributor and a White House reporter for the Associated Press. So, Zeke, how have American oil companies so far responded to the president's letter, and what can the companies even do that they haven't tried to already do?
That's the real challenge facing the White House here, is that there's not a whole lot that those oil production companies, particularly those refining companies, to do. The refinery capacity in the U.S. has been on the decline over the last several years. There hasn't been new refineries brought online. And that's partly what we've heard from the oil companies in response to the president, pointing to his climate policies that have been trying to disincentivize the use of greenhouse gas emitting petroleum products. And so they've turned around to the White House and said, if you had had different policies, you might not be in the same situation here. This is obviously a unique crisis, in large part because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So the challenge is, there's a lot of rhetoric coming from both sides here and not a lot of solutions. And that's unfortunately likely going to stay that way.
So, Zeke, President Biden will be traveling to oil-rich Saudi Arabia next month. But White House officials have said that the trip will actually not focus on the gas and energy crisis. So why might that be, and what topics are actually on the table?
Well, we heard today from one of the new White House spokespeople, John Kirby, who used to be over at the Pentagon. He said, oil would certainly come up in that discussion, but that the president wanted to focus on regional security issues such as Iran, the war in the civil war in Yemen, which has been in a bit of a pause with the ceasefire over the last several months, and trying to continue that. Other security issues and bilateral and regional security issues that the U.S. has with Saudi Arabia, but there's certainly a lot of concern within the administration, of the optics of being seen to be going to Saudi Arabia after the president was so forceful in criticizing the regime there after the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi a couple of years ago, and calling them a pariah state for the president to be seen as going there almost hat in hand asking for more oil. That can't be the center of the trip from the White House's perspective, from the president's perspective. So they're saying the focus is going to be on those regional security issues. They'd like to get more oil production out of Saudi Arabia and other OPEC plus countries as a byproduct of that meeting as well. But they can't list that bill that as the number one issue for that reason.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, the Biden administration also announced that the U.S. will send an additional $1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. So how much has the U.S. given to Ukraine so far? And how is the White House justifying this aid, given what we're all going through here, the economic situation and the downfall here?
Yeah, this is one part of that new $40 billion tranche of spending that Congress approved a few weeks ago, bringing the total that the U.S. from the military standpoint that the U.S. has given to Ukraine to roughly $5.5 billion. It's a tremendous amount of material, and more is going to come. That congressional legislation authorized something in the neighborhood of almost $20 billion to be spent between now and the end of the year. Ukraine needs that. A lot of that's just backfilling supplies, additionally providing new more advanced systems like multiple rocket launch systems that Ukraine says it needs in order to maintain what is contain Russia's advance in eastern Ukraine and the Donbass region. But that question of the political concern, we've started to see in our polling and other news organizations polling concerns among Americans about sending this funding to Ukraine, the effect of that wars on gas prices and food prices both here and around the world. That's a real challenge for not just the president, but for the entire Western coalition trying to support Ukraine in this endeavor. How long can they stay united as to the macroeconomic and global effects and side effects of that war continue to play out around the world? What is people's appetite for sustaining that sort of pressure on Russia? And that's really a huge challenge for the president, particularly as he heads to Europe later this month.
Finally, Zeke, President Biden signed a new executive order extending protections for LGBTQ youth. Of course, this is Pride Month. So what more can you tell us about this?
This is number one, a symbolic effort by the president to try to show his allyship with the LGBTQ plus community this month and sort of really celebrate them from the White House and use the power of the presidential podium to do that. Executive orders come and go with presidents, so it doesn't have the full force of law, but he's asking, for instance, for the Federal Trade Commission to investigate so-called conversion therapies and to try to block or restrict federal funds from going to programs like that. But there are some policy impacts, but the most visible part of it was really just its visibility. The fact that the president hosting a large gathering of people at the White House to celebrate Pride Month, that is sort of the real message the president was trying to send. The policy side effects or the policy implications of it really will depend on who's in office. And right now, the president's trying to curtail those programs anyway.
All right, Zeke Miller, lots to cover for us there. Thank you.
Thanks.